Hello and welcome to Rob from the Internet Talks About Beer, a show where we discuss different styles of beer, beer history, beer flavor profiles, we give shout outs to breweries we think make exceptional beer, and we talk about whatever else happens to pop into our heads while we're talking. So, as you know, I'm Rob from the Internet. Let's talk about beer. All right, so joining me today is Jason Tremblay. If you would, Jason, tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got into craft beer, and what you do when you're not talking to people like me.
I've been homebrewing for probably close to 26 years, I guess, and started drinking craft beer close to 30 years ago in Montreal, around when McCausland, Boreal, and Unibrew started out. That first time I had Blanche de Chambly in particular, it
Blew your
there were
mind?
fireworks. Yeah, 30 years ago, sure, you could get British style ales in Montreal. You could get stouts, porters, pale ales, red beers, ambers, or house. And man, when Blanche de Chambly came out, it was like nothing I had ever had from a North American brewery. It was just spectacular. So of course, the first beer I ever tried homebrewing was a Who Garden clone. I still remember the name, Who's in the Garden Grand Cru from Charlie Papazian. Shout out to one of the OGs. Took me years to figure out the joke too. And from there, kept on homebrewing, and about 8-9 years ago, Ralph Morana offered me a job at Bar Volo to be one of the brewers for house ales. I started doing all their, what did they call me? Bug Barrel and Belgian guy.
Nice.
Yeah, totally. We ended up making the first Ontario beer aged in an Ontario red wine barrel.
Cool.
Probably made, if not the first, one of the first Brett IPAs in the province. And I think one of possibly the first kettle sour beer made with a pure culture of lactobacillus instead of old school, just throwing in a handful of grain and letting it rock.
Cool.
And yeah, all my respect to the Morana family. They really let me go wild in the basement there. I was growing up different strains of Brett, experimenting with different kinds of bacteria. Good times.
And what are you doing these days?
These days, I've just signed an employment contract with a new startup brewery.
Awesome.
Yeah, sold my sold out the brewery I founded, Shacklands, to my former partner Dave Watts, and looking to make a new start.
So are you going to be like the head brewer there, or are you going to be just like doing a recipe consultation? What is it you're going to be doing?
Head brewer, recipe development, making sure the build out goes well, helping to stick handle some of the regulatory things.
So just a little bit of everything then.
A little bit of everything is basically what I'm good at.
Yeah. So, if you can, where is this going to be? Is it going to be in the Toronto area? Is it going to be Southwest Ontario?
Yeah,
I mean,
in Toronto.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I mean, I like beer, so as many craft breweries as can be out there, the more the merrier in my
totally.
eyes. So, all right. So today we're going to be talking about saisons, and in particular, we're actually going to be talking about Saison Dupont. It's like the granddaddy of saisons that's out there. Everybody knows it. Everybody likes it. And if you don't know it, well, you'll know it by the end of this episode. So, you can go to the brewery's website, and they have a little history on it. According to them, they've been brewing this beer since 1844, and it was typically brewed in the winter and stored till spring or summer for when there were workers in the farms, and it was given to them like that. There is some contention as to whether or not that's true. I think you have some thoughts on that, don't you, Jason?
Yeah, the not quite opposing story, but other researchers have said that the story about the farm workers and Saison Dupont being a farmhouse brewery is possibly a little bit of myth making on the part of Dupont itself. So the history is muddled, and if you go back to the brewing records we have, there's not a lot of reference to Saison in the 19th century at all. There are probably more references to Grisette.
Yeah, and that's another great beer style as well.
Yeah. The really defining feature of Saison Dupont is the yeast character. And if you noodle around some of the DuPont histories, they talk about developing the house yeast in the 1950s. It's kind of a messy story. It's not like IPA, where we can go back to 18th century brewing records from really good mechanized brewers,
right,
who are producing incredible quantities of beer and kept impeccable records. The story of Saison is messy. And yeah, the story of the farm workers is a beautiful story. And part of my family even comes from Bologna. So it kind of resonates that maybe I had some family back in the day working in the fields. It's an amazing story.
Yeah, well, and it's the story that everybody knows too. So it's like, oh, this is what it is. So for people who don't know, beers in the saison category tend to be a golden yellow to a light amber color. They're often bottle conditioned or what we would say is re-fermented in the bottle. They have a fairly yeasty characteristic, at least to my palate. Fairly yeasty, highly carbonated. They might have a kind of like a lactic flavor characteristic to them. Some fruity or some like barnyard funk is what most people call it. Barnyard funk going on there a little bit. Smells kind of like you're on the farm. You've got the mixed smells, a little bit sour, a little bit floral, things like that. Depending on the brewer, some of them,
black pepper.
Yeah, the black pepper, right. Depending on what spices the brewer uses, you get all different sorts of flavor profiles in there.
And maybe a bit of clover, some hay and straw. Some of the earthy characteristics can come out from continental fuggles.
Right.
they're interesting in that most of my favorite examples of Saison are relatively strong in ABV, but they're delicate and complex beers. Like Saison Dupont, to my mind, doesn't read like a 6.5% beer. It reads like a 5% beer that you could sit down and drink all afternoon.
Right.
Get up, and then you realize, oh, I have done a mischief to myself.
Yeah, it's what's commonly referred to in the bar circles as a stand-up beer, because you don't realize how much you've had until you stand up.
Yeah, or a brick in a velvet glove.
Right, exactly, yeah. So, for people who don't know, Belgians, for people that are more who want a little more of the technical information, they should be somewhere in the 3 to 7 SRM for their color. 20 to 38 is what their IBU should be. And their alcohol content is typically somewhere between 4.5 to 6.5, but it does vary from batch to batch and from brewer to brewer. Right. I mean, I'm talking traditionally what they should be. I mean, yeah, what they are now. I mean, you'll find saisons that are 7, 8. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen anything higher than that. You may have. So. Typical serving vessel for this would be a tulip glass, and proper temperature would be 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, or 12 or so degrees Celsius. So
cellar temp, like a British cask ale.
Yep. Yeah. So I took mine out of the fridge about an hour and a half ago, so it should be about the right temperature. You can see it's fairly highly carbonated. Gets a nice head on it. This has a great aroma. I mean, it does have that sour sense in the aroma. But yeah, I get like grasslands. So it's like, it's that like you're standing out in a field right after it's rained or something like that. You get that kind of grassy smell.
Totally.
And then I get a little bit of pepper on this. Maybe a little other spice that I can't quite identify. Maybe like an allspice type scent. So
yeah, clove, allspice, something kind of deep and savory, which adds, I think, to the interest and complexity of the beer without really socking you with it.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things I love about Dupont is just how integrated all the different flavors are. You can tease apart earth, hay, straw, little bit of barnyard, black pepper, something like lemon verbena, some pretty tight carbonic acid in there from the high carbonation.
Yep. Yeah.
And it all comes together really beautifully. It
does. I mean, just looking at it, I mean, this is a beautiful looking beer. So it's got that nice golden hue to it. It's a little, it's a little bit cloudy. You can't really see through it. But it's not like super hazy like some of the New England IPAs. When I'm drinking it, I get that kind of earthy flavoring. I get like a lemongrass. I do get the spices more in the flavor than I did in the aroma. So I'm getting pepper. I'm getting a little bit of clove. It's fantastic. This is a beer that, like you said, I would see myself drinking several of these in a day and then not realizing what I've done to myself.
Yeah. And whenever someone asks, on Twitter or Facebook, what are your desert island beers? Saison Dupont, absolutely there
Yeah.
every time. Um, the other 4 or 9 beers kind of flip around a little bit, but Saison Dupont, it's a beer I can always come back to. And it, one of, if we move on from just Dupont,
Hmm.
the Saison yeast is absolutely beautiful, used in a variety of non-traditional ways. I'm not sure if you've ever had it, but maybe 9 or 10 years ago, I had a bottle of Sriracha Ace from Brooklyn Brewery, which was their Saison made with Sriracha hops.
Hmm.
And that beer lit off fireworks again for me because it made me realize, oh, you can make a highly hopped beer where the hops come forward with a Saison yeast and it's still glorious.
Hmm. Yeah, I've never had that one.
So back in my Volo days, we did experiment with some highly hopped Saisons. And again, just beautiful.
Yeah.
Especially if the hops you're using play off the fruity notes of the yeast or the spicy notes. So Sriracha Ace, Saws, Galaxy, Citra, they all play really nice with Saison. So you end up kind of like the savory spice of the beer itself layering in with fruit. And to me, that's an aspect of Saisons that speaks to me as well.
I know.
And
Sorry. No.
Go ahead.
No. I sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, over time I started playing with Saison IPA hybrids
That'd be
and
interesting.
beers like Farmhouse IPA at Shacklands and any of the good dozen, maybe 2 dozen variations I made on that beer with different hop combinations, different ABVs. I just really like them.
Yeah, I know. I've brewed a few saisons myself. It's actually my wife's favorite beer style. So whenever I get the chance to brew it for her, I'll make up a batch of it. My favorite hop to actually use with it is Saaz. So I think it works really well with. And I tend to use Escarpment Labs old world saison yeast with it, and I think those two work so well together, and the flavor is just always just on point for me and for her. So
Yeah, you end up accentuating the spicy character of the yeast. But if you use something like Citra or Galaxy, you layer in quite strong fruit flavors. And back in the days when I would watch an awful lot of food TV with the kids, one of Anna Olsen's tricks was to always make her fruit pies with grains of paradise. And grains of paradise are a traditional Belgian brewing spice. They are the freakiest thing. They're black pepper and lemon, basically. And that was part of the magic moment when I thought, oh, black pepper, lemon, and
chicken,
savory, and fruity. And yeah, those spicy clove black pepper notes, they're really good with fruit.
yeah.
Next time you make a saison, use an absolutely unconscionable amount of Citra and Galaxy, and it'll be
I'll
glorious.
have to give that a try. Excuse me.
Yeah, if it doesn't turn out,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry about that.
No, whatever. That's part of the fun of being a home brewer is experimenting and playing with stuff. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, it's not like I'm brewing, 5-10 hectoliters of the stuff. I'm brewing somewhere between 20 liters and 100 liters at a time. So it's not like even if it was a 100-liter batch, I'm out what, $50, $100, something like that. Nothing. I mean,
The last time I drove around southern Ontario with a super hoppy Saison IPA, I think I used about a half pound each of Mosaic and Citra for 20 liters.
ooh, that's a lot of hops.
But in my defense, both Don Redmond and Drunk Pokeroo really like those beers.
Yeah, yeah. I can see that because I mean they're both big IPA fans. They're actually a couple of my Twitter friends. I mean, obviously you're one of my Twitter friends as well. We all kind of talk about the same stuff all the time. For those who may be interested, if you're going to try a saison, so alcohol, aroma, you're not going to get a whole lot off the nose of that. The hop aroma should be low to mid, depending on the hops that are used. The bitterness should be medium to medium high, again, depending on the hop varietal used.
Yeah, and sometimes the ABV. A lot of brewers will dial back the IBUs on smaller saisons just to make sure that the real dryness of the saison and the lower ABV, you don't want to be socked in the mouth with 40 IBUs.
Right. This is true.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a balancing game to play.
Yeah, so fruit flavors should be one of the things you really get out of this. You should get, your lemon, your orange, things like that. And like we said earlier, you should get peppers and other similar spices. So, but, this is one of those styles that if you brew it well, if it's brewed well, it's a style you can drink all year round. It's not necessarily just a summer beer. I mean, even though that's the whole story is it's a summer beer, blah blah blah. It's great in the middle of winter, sitting in front of your fire, or sitting in front of your TV, even with whatever, and it pairs well with all sorts of stuff. I mean, I've had a saison with pizza. I've had it with steak. I've had it with cheese popcorn.
Nachos. Yeah, and occasionally you see breweries come out with dark saisons that layer in a bit of roast, bit of chocolate, bit of coffee, and those are really nice as well. You don't see always a lot of them, but they're around.
Yeah, I've got a recipe I've been toying with that I haven't brewed it yet. I've been toying with making I called it a black saison because I was going to use some darker malts in it just to get a deeper color. Excuse me, and a little bit of a different flavor profile for it. But like I said, I haven't gotten around to actually brewing it yet. I'm still trying to decide what all I want to put in it.
Yeah, and if you want to cheat with the world's easiest to use yeast, Belle Saison works a treat for a lot of Saison IPAs and darker IPAs where you also want maybe a little bit dialed back yeast character to let the other flavors come through. And the neat thing about Belle Saison is that it's a diastaticus yeast, which means it kicks off its own amylase enzymes. So it will dry the hell out of any beer you make with it. A all of a sudden you're looking at 90 or 95% attenuation.
Wow. That,
And solid attenuation is something a lot of home brewers struggle with. But you can cheat with Belle Saison, or even throw in a little bit of Belle Saison with an Abbey yeast, just to make sure it fully attenuates.
well, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Or even just bump up the ABV a little bit on your triple or quad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Note for all the homebrewers out there who enter competitions, dry is good.
The drier, the better. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, totally.
Excuse me. I've got a weird thing going on with my throat today. It's been my throat's been dry all day, and I just can't seem to shake this tickle.
Have you tried more beer?
Yeah, well, that's the plan. I've been drinking beer today. So, people who might want to know, this beer should have a fairly soft body. So it shouldn't be super dry at the first. It might be dry in the finish, but in your mouth it should be a nice rounded feeling. It shouldn't be sharp at all. Again, like I said, it's highly carbonated, so you'll get all sorts of little bubbles in there. And if you don't like high carbonated beer, well, you just swirl it around a little bit, help release a little bit of that CO2.
Yeah, or even pour it aggressively.
Oh, yep.
And take your time pouring it out so you get a huge, fluffy, cloudy head on it.
Yeah, and even when you do that, the head breaks down fairly quick. It's not like it sticks around forever, you know. I mean, I had a big head on this when I started, and it was gone within like 20, 30 seconds. Yeah. So it's...
Well, the other funny thing about Saison Dupont is that, as far as we know, it's a single malt beer. There's no wheat, no crystal, no carafoam, no nothing. It is single malt, probably Dingemans, Pilsner.
Yeah, Pilsner malt.
Yeah. In fact, I think you could probably take the entire recipe of Saison Dupont, switch it out with a Czech lager yeast, ferment it out at lager temperatures, and you would end up with a pretty solid Pils.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with a good Pils either.
Yeah, totally. I think we forget how simple a lot of traditional European beers are at the end of the day. Just because we have access to 200 kinds of malt at the homebrew store,
right,
doesn't mean we have to use 4 or 5 of them in every single beer we make.
Yep. I do a blonde ale that only has 2 malts in it, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's nice, it's simple, it's clean. You know, you're not.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point of it. It's I want to sit on the patio in the sun and drink a bunch of beer, so I don't want anything that's overly complex or too high in ABV. I mean, mine comes in at like 4.5% at top end, so it's one of those I can sit on the patio and just drink it all day long if I want, not worry about being completely trashed. You know, some of the simplest styles are the best.
Yeah, it's like the trick question on the beer judge test. How many malts are used in a Czech Pilsner? Oh, no, it can't possibly be 1. Can it?
Can it? Pilsner malt?
Can it? Yeah, just...
I like a good Czech Pilsner, that's for sure. They're good beers.
Yeah, totally. And for that matter, even a triple, traditionally made with just Pils malt.
Yep.
And
just a whole lot of it.
Well, sometimes not even a whole lot. A lot of the time it's just complicated decoction mashes to make sure that all the available sugars are fermentable. And so if you look at the attenuation that a lot of Belgian breweries get on their beers, it's pushing 90%. There'll be some sugar involved,
Yeah.
but the old methods they use are really good at starch conversion.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that's
And
something as a home brewer, I actually struggle with quite a bit.
yeah, ditto here. I still have my grandfather in the back corner of the basement, and while I'm waiting for the new brewery to really get going, I've been homebrewing a storm, and I kind of miss having the big mash tun. Um, Professional brewing equipment is just more efficient at the end of the day.
Yep.
So I can do a multi-step mash in my grainfather. I can really obsess over the water chemistry. And the commercial batches I did, I would, yeah, throw in some lactic acid, throw in a handful of salt. Boom, 90% attenuation. And it's like, why is it so hard at home?
Yeah, it's that whole economy of scale thing. I mean, the you
Yeah.
know, you just don't have the room, or it doesn't have, you know, all the same moving parts that you do in the commercial equipment. So
Yeah, I tried to make a triple last week, and wow, they say the max amount of grain you can put in a grainfather is 18 pounds, so I put 16.7 in, and it was an hour and a half sparge.
yeah,
And I did the most anal retentive mash I possibly could. I let that sucker go for close to 2 hours so that everything would be converted. And then at the end of the day, pull out that basket, and I've got a grain bed this tall. And if I had brewed at my old brewery the exact same beer to the exact ABV, same amount of sugar, the grain bed would have been this tall.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
there's not a lot you
what
can do
can you
though.
do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you ferment it and you drink it. That's what you do.
Yeah, and you throw a bunch of, well, if you're me, you throw a bunch of bread at it to finish drying it out and give it a little barnyard and hope at the end of the day you've got an Orval clone.
Oh, there you go. Yep. So, other than Saison Dupont here, what are some other saisons that you really like?
Ooh.
Just one or two.
Okay. Yeah, shout out to Sriracha Ace if you ever see it. That beer is inspirational for me. It made me realize that you can combine Old World and, well, not even New World, you can combine Old World with Japanese hops, and you can come out with completely new flavors. Um, Saison Davenport from Shacklands is my baby, available at the LCBO. Uh, Aaron at Little Beast does an amazing job with saisons, and seasonally, um, you get saisons out of Sada City.
Mm-hmm.
I think Indy throws some out. Indy makes a lot of good beers.
They do make a lot of good beer.
And the Muse Saison is also quite good, also available at the LCBO.
I actually had Muse for the first time this past week. I had a friend who was visiting from Nova Scotia, and we hit up a few local breweries around here. And I mean, Muse is, you know, it's 20 minutes from my house, so we went over there and
Nice.
yeah, so we went and we tried out everything they had. You know, a little sampler size of everything they had. Yeah, they had good stuff. And then we also hit New Limburg and tried some of their stuff. And then we went to Flux, which is Flux is a newer brewery in Scotland. It's like 10 minutes from my house, and they have a really fantastic setup. It's a new place. They've only been open, I think, for like a year or so, but they've got a fantastic setup out at the farm, out at this farm, and they've got just a great selection of their own beers, and I had a fantastic Martzen that they created, which was really great, which was opportune because I was looking for some good Oktoberfest style beers.
Nice. Yeah, they're around. Availability at the LCBO is a little limited, except for Dupont. But yeah, if you're willing to road trip it a bit,
Oh yeah,
there are a few around, and probably next summer when bars are open and there's a full tap list going, you'll probably see a few more pop up on draft.
hopefully.
And fingers crossed, I'll be back to producing Belgians and Saisons for the summer, late summer, early fall. Don't want to curse it though.
Right. Yeah. If everything goes according to plan, that's the way it should go. But who knows these days? So, one of my favorite Belgian styles to actually brew is a double. I think it's a fantastic beer. The super complex flavor profile that it has, and just the overall mouthfeel and everything. It's just a great beer. It's one of my favorites for when I'm grilling out in the summertime. I love to have a good double with like some nice juicy pork sausages or a nice big thick cut of steak. I think it goes really well with those.
Yeah, the Maillard sugars from Candy Syrup are mirrored in browned meats and caramelized onions.
Yep.
Double and even quads are fantastic food beers, especially for either grilled, seared, or even slow cooked.
Yeah, braised foods.
Yeah, anywhere where you really kind of either quickly sear something or you let something reduce and slowly cook and build up the complex sugars.
Yep.
Sorry, I can get nerdy about that.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
But,
I mean, a lot of people don't know this stuff, and by you going off and talking about stuff like that, you might just spark something in someone's brain. They'd be like, "Oh, hey, I never thought of that. What if I tried this with this and this with that?" I mean, the whole point of my video series is to try and educate people a little bit. So if you go off on a tangent about what goes with what, that's great, because as far as I'm concerned, the more knowledge we can throw out at people, the better.
Yeah, I never know how to pronounce it, but here in Ontario, ABD, ABD 12, Abbott 12, something like that. It's as close to Westvleteren 12 as you're going to find legally in Ontario. The monks don't like the beer being resold, and it's cheap. It's like $3.50 a bottle for an 11% quad. Like,
Nice.
sign me up here.
Right.
And it's absolutely gorgeous. It's readily available. And I think people kind of sleep on it. In fact, all the St. Bernardus beers are amazing.
Yeah, they really are. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just tend to buy Chimay when it comes to the doubles, because it's so readily available and it is a good beer. I mean, you can't go wrong if you pick up that red bottle. I mean, or the blue for that matter.
Yeah, totally. For me, I love the particular balance of the dark fruit flavors, the high carbonation, which makes it feel a little snappy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, good double. It's another one of those beers that speaks to my heart, but there aren't any that are desert island beers for me. I'm
Gotcha.
sorry.
Oh no, I mean, you like what you like. The heart.
Rodenbach.
Oh, Rodenbach.
Rodenbach Grand Cru.
Yes.
Similar beer, but with tight acidity and a little bit of barnyard.
Yep. Yeah. So when I moved to Canada just over 3 years ago, a friend of ours, friend of my wife's, as a housewarming and welcoming gift for me, brought me a bottle of Rodenbach. It was a 2011. So this was 3 years ago. So this was 2018, I guess. We moved in towards the end of 2018, and he brought me a bottle he had in his cellar. It was a 2011 Rodenbach Grand Cru, and it was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. A funny story. I was at a conference where the brewmaster for Rodenbach was speaking, and he was talking about the process for making Rodenbach, and there are some glorious slides of these foeders that are the size of a swimming pool. Cut to the actual brewery, and the brewery looked like something out of Star Trek.
Really?
One of the most high-tech breweries you've ever seen in your life. And he was talking about the process, and Rodenbach pre-acidulates everything with lactobacillus before they round into the foeders. That made a lot of people go, "Oh, tell me more." Yes. We pitch a certain amount of lactobacillus into the wort, and we let it ferment for a certain number of days, and then we run it down to the foeders. And it's like, but can you tell us more?
No.
And he talked a little bit about the recipe, and he said, yes, and we brew with the traditional Flemish brewing spices. And again, every head snaps forward. Someone raises his hand, and he goes, so what spices do you use? Only the traditional Flemish brewing spices. Nothing else. And I scoured every book I have. I scoured the internet. I found no references to there being spices in Flemish beers. None. So either this guy was yanking our chain,
which he probably could have been,
with that ridiculously dry sense of humor, very possibly, or we actually have no idea at all how some of these beers are really made. And it makes things like my collection of Brew Like a Monk and Wild Brews from another podcast I did seem a little bit quaint. And I think sometimes we're trying to recreate classic continental beers, and we honestly have no idea how they do it.
Right. Well, and a lot of that stuff is so closely guarded and kept so close to the vest. I mean, it's you know, it's not even funny. It's like you can't get. I mean, I'm actually surprised he even gave out that much information. Oh, well, we do this for a certain number of days, and then we do this for a certain number of days.
Oh, he was 100% trolling us. There is no doubt in my mind he got the exact reaction from us he wanted, and that reaction was, wait, what?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Hey, man, we have come to the part of the show where it's time to sign off because we've been rambling on here for about 45 minutes, believe it or not. Um,
Wow.
yeah, no, it's funny how that happens. So, I've had shows that have only been 25 minutes long, and I've had a couple that by the time I was done recording, we'd gone almost 2 hours, and I had to edit it down. You never know where these things are going to go.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
I'd like to thank anybody who watches this. If you enjoyed it, please like it. Please subscribe or hit the little bell to be notified.
And no comments about my messy pit of a basement.
I'm in my basement too. I was recording last season. I was recording out in my garage where all my brewing equipment is, but the echo in there was too bad, and I was I had to do a lot of compensation and post work to get rid of the echo. So I decided to move into the basement where there's a lot less. So yeah, people get to see my basement as well. So don't feel bad about that. This is actually the first episode of season 2, so I'd like to thank you for being the premier guest for season 2.
Thank you for having me on.
You bet. Like I said, if you enjoyed it, please subscribe, hit the little bell to be notified. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, hey, leave them in the comments below. If you have a question for me or something for Jason, also leave that in the comments below, and I'll be sure to forward it on if it's for him. I wouldn't forward stuff you do for me because that'd be silly. But, until next time, I'm Rob from the internet. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.